Hello, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of the inner journey on the elemental wheel. It's something we've called the inner journey, and if you look at that was just my dog getting off the bed. If you look at the wheel, and if you look at the diagrams we've done for the outer and inner journey, you'll see that the clockwise movements are generally kind of like outwardly directed into life and activity and things like this, and the counterclockwise movements tend to be directed towards inner processes. That's basically what they're tending to do, though it gets a little bit complicated, I think, yeah, in certain respects. Now, the inner journey shows a relationship between the energies of the open archetypes, and it shows them having specific relationships. Yeah. There are certain questions you can ask about this, yeah, because, like, for instance, the inner world is a world which is not time bound in the way that the outer world is. It's not sequential in the way that the outer world is. It's not goal oriented in the same kind of way. I mean, it has movements within it. It has definite unfoldings. It has all these sorts of things, yeah. But it's a very different kind of world, yeah. And so, any sense of a journey is going to be fundamentally different to the sense of a journey we have in the outer world, which is time-bound, sequential, consequential, yeah. Everything has consequences in the outer world. In the inner world, as it stands, it's free, yeah. It's free, and there is a mystery to it. Now, obviously from this you could ask yourself, well, what kind of a journey can exist in the inner world in this case? And I think the answer is that we make sense of the inner world in terms of our individualized experience in the world, yeah. And so we map the inner world, make it intelligible through our own consciousness, yeah. That's how we make it intelligible and how we map it. Now, the inner journey, this relationship between the open archetypes is very important, yeah. The open archetypes are the nymph, also called the child or the angel by some people, the sage, which used to be called the observer, the hearth priestess, which at one time was called the slave, and some people call the queen now, and then the fool, who's always been called the fool as far as I'm aware. These are the open archetypes, yeah, and you'll see that they all have a specific element first, and they also have a specific element second. So, you know, you can look at that and study them separately, yeah. But they are all open archetypes. They're all open to inspiration, and they have a quality there, and a quality which orients them towards the inner life and the inner world in various ways. They have a strong connection to it. Now you can see the way they're spaced around the circle. There's two ways they could go, clockwise or anti-clockwise, and we've often referred to the anti-clockwise direction as the inner journey. Now, to make sense of this, for me, I think this inner journey is basically how we maintain a kind of health. It's almost like a circulatory system of energy. It's a very natural one, and it works well for us. And what it does is it helps to clear toxins. It helps to clear the things that build up, which makes these things very difficult. And it helps us to deal with problems. And the problems we're facing are often come from the outside, yeah, come from outside of us, yeah. Not always, but quite often they just come from outside of us. Obviously, the outer and the inner are interdependent, yeah. And in fact, the two journeys are interdependent. The outer and the inner journey are interdependent. But I think the inner journey basically is a circulatory system, essentially. It's a kind of circulatory system of energy, which nourishes us, clears toxins, keeps things in good order, and heals. And it's very important. It has a holistic principle to it, which is very important. Now, how can we use this? Because, you know, obviously this is something which it occurs naturally, yeah. But things come to awareness in us generally when they're in trouble or when they're causing us pain or suffering, yeah. And then we can see how we can use the pattern of the inner journey to help us. And how I would use it is as follows. We often see that a lot of our problems cluster around the cardinals. Now, the cardinals are the magician, the jester, Mother Nature, and the enchantress, and they're all single gender elements entirely within those archetypes, yeah. And they kind of form this cross right in the middle of the wheel. And often you find that there are problems clustered around these cardinals. At least that's my impression from what I've seen and what I've heard, yeah. And the sort of problems you could get were, for instance, you know, the Hearth Priestess may have problems with some experience or a person or something which exemplifies the negative matriarch. So these two are on either side of the cardinal of Mother Nature, yeah. So, for instance, a very controlling, judgmental matriarch will very much judge the Hearth Priestess for what she is and for her qualities, yeah, and not like them, and will basically turn her into a drudge and a slave, sort of thing. There are other examples of that, you know, for instance, with the if you look at the enchantress, that cardinal, you often see that, you know, an actress will absolutely despise a child type or a nymph type and just feel very threatened by that sort of a consciousness or person, and will really be quite abusive to them and this sort of thing. You could find if you look at the fire quarter, the jester, you'll find that, so, for instance, a fool will be bullied by a warrior. So somebody who's spontaneous and creative will be just kind of bullied by somebody who's just a straightforward action type of person, or what have you, or an influence, or something that's something that's within one person, yeah. You see, but these are the sort of things I'm kind of like looking at. They tend to I think these things tend to crop up, and quite often it seems to be the open state is being given a problem by the closed state, yeah. And that would be understandable, because that's where the suffering is lodged. The suffering is lodged inwardly, so that's where we find the problem, if you see what I mean. Outwardly, it's obviously, if it's just outward troubles, we deal with them outwardly, but suffering really lodges inwardly. So we're looking at open states to see where that is, you know. Yeah. Now, these may not be the only kind of problems we get, yeah, but this is one type of problem. And so how would we deal with that? Well, look, let's say that we've got the first example there. Hearth Priestess type is oppressed by a matriarch influence or person or pattern within themselves even, yeah, that's been internalized, yeah. So this person is very much oppressed, over-controlled, judged, criticized, you know, or what have you. So what happens there? Well, what can happen there, what can really help, is that Hearth Priestess would normally be getting its energy, its nourishing energy, upstream from the inner journey. In other words, from the sage in this case. So that energy should be coming from the sage to give the Hearth Priestess space, peace, clarity, all these sorts of things. Yeah. The oppression of the negative matriarch is going to get in the way of that, and that's what is going to weaken the Hearth Priestess and her positive qualities. So, by consciously remaking that connection with the inner journey and receiving the energy from the sage and focusing on those qualities, that's greatly protective for the Hearth Priestess, and it will help the Hearth Priestess to deal with that situation and find positive solutions to it, and to let go of things, to become free of things, to move, to regain herself, basically. Similarly, you could look at, say, the Fool that's been oppressed by a warrior type. Well, again, what does the warrior? What will the Fool do? The Fool will look back upstream to the on the inner journey, and he will look back to the Hearth Priestess in this case. And the Hearth Priestess's energy is much more earthy, and it's much more fiery. It's got fire second, so it's coming from fire, but it's a much more earthy one. And this will be much easier. This will make it much easier for the Fool to actually deal with the fiery, earthy quality of the warrior. You'll notice from this that the solution to the, if you want to call it the aggressor energy or the dysfunctional energy which is causing the problem, the solution to it is right next to it in this sense. Yeah. So, for instance, when it was the matriarch, which is earth and air, we reconnected with the energy coming from the sage, which is air and earth. And in the case of it being the warrior, fire and earth, that was the problem causing the problem to the Fool, we reconnected with earth and fire. And you see, these adjacent archetypes within a single quadrant, yeah, involving the same elements, they speak the same language. So again, this helps to ameliorate and unravel the problem in that sense. But anyway, in this case, we're seeing that we have this kind of a pattern occurring. And we can see that, we can definitely see that the inner journey is providing us with solutions. And these are quite practical solutions in many ways. They're inward because they're re-establishing this inward flow of energy. But they are very real, and they can really help us to become free of problems. Yeah. They're very therapeutic, in fact. Yeah. Now, this journey, of course, it can also go in the other direction. Yeah. And when it goes in the other direction, it basically brings about creative expression, as far as I could see. But there are hazards to that, because it's following inward impetuses with an inward map in the outer world. So there has to be something or someone taking care of the outer world for that to be able to happen. Yeah, if you see what I mean. So you'll find that following the other way, it does map out creative expression, but there has to be somebody actually taking care of the outside world for you to be able to do that in general. Yeah, there are maybe there are probably all sorts of other patterns as well that you can trace. So the patterns for art, patterns for magic, patterns for different things, they work in different ways, and they require different amounts of different kinds of coordination between the inner and outer journeys. The inner and outer journeys are always working together, though. That's the thing to remember. They're always working together, whichever way they're going. Yeah. But I'll say some more about that another time. The only other thing I wanted to put in here was like, well, what happens if you have, say, a problem with that isn't coming from clustered around a single archetype. Yeah, clustered around a single cardinal. For instance, say you've got a full, spontaneous, creative type person, and they're being oppressed by are like a very negative patriarch, yeah, that's just basically trying to shut them down. Patriarch's meant to be good for Fool. Those two archetypes in general will affirm each other, help each other if they're in good quality. But obviously this is a case where you don't have that. Now what's going to happen there? What's going to happen there? Well, in that case I would say you still could look back upstream on the inner journey, and the Fool will still strengthen itself from the energy it gets from the Hearth Priestess, and it will make it more earthy and all these sorts of things. However, you'll notice that the Hearth Priestess is the exact opposite of the Patriarch. So it does not speak the same language at all. And in this case, I think what we're talking about is the Fool becoming stronger in themselves and more able to actually withstand that sort of a problem, and probably being able to oppose it more fully. I'm guessing that, but I'd have to see this thing actually working out in practice to be able to confirm it, really. But that's what I think would happen there. Anyway, that's my video for today. It is just starting to look at this this question. There's a lot of interesting things to look at in terms of the journeys, the inner and outer journeys, and how they can work together. There's a lot to look at there, but this is just a little start on this one question, because I think the inner journey, as a kind of as a natural circulatory system of energy, is tremendously therapeutic, and it really can give people resources to actually resolve some of their suffering and be able to then deal with their situations better in whatever way. Okay, thank you.